Right here, let's get back to business today and this conversation that I promised before we went on break, which is with the Home Afrika leader. Now, Home Afrika Limited is a real estate company listed on the growth and emerging markets segment at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The company posted a 346.2 million shilling net loss for the year ended December 2018. Its revenues from contracts with customers dropped about 58.51% from the year before. And joining me to delve into this situation and the real estate sector now is Dan Awendo, the Managing Director of Home Afrika. Dan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's get right into the crux of this. Of course, nobody wants to be in such a lurch, but why has Home Afrika been registering such a steady decline?
I wouldn't call it decline. If you think about real estate is long-term projects. We are talking about projects that are certainly more than 1 year, 2 years. Our project, the biggest project we have, Miga Golf Estate, is a 7 to 10 year project. Generally, profits will stay towards the end of a project, not in the beginning. So while we have the issue of having to report on a half-yearly basis, you are then under pressure to report profits, which you don't have because the project is a long-term project. By the time we finish Miga, it will be maybe another 3-4 years.
So that
is when we're expecting to start showing the profits that we.
So that's your major focus.
That's our major focus, yes.
Okay, but when it comes to your financial reporting system, it only allows you to recognize deposits from sales as revenue once a plot owner has completed payment, the title has been processed, and the project is done with.
Right.
So how does this affect then your financial outlook?
Obviously, it makes our financial look very, very negative for the simple reason that if you have sold, like last year, we sold about 542 million shillings. But international financial reporting standards require us to report only the percentage of completion of our project, which means we were only allowed to report up to 108 million shillings. So which means the difference, which is where the profit is sitting, goes to our balance sheet and will be recouped over time as we complete our project or increase the percentage of completion of our project. So at the end of the day, this is why I'm not too worried about the losses we are making on an annual basis, especially in the initial part of the project, because most of that profit, most of the sales sit in our balance sheet, either as deferred income or as liabilities, because at the end of the day, so long as I've been paid a deposit for my property, I don't take all of that into my revenue. I take part of it into revenue based on percentage of completion, and most of it goes into the balance sheet to be converted into sales over time as I complete my projects.
Okay, but aside from the long-term projects, the real estate sector has seen a dip from that boom that was noticed a couple of years ago. There has been that decline year on year that we've been noticing.
Right.
So what is the crux of the matter there, and how can companies actually survive that sort of hit?
Yeah. Now, the primary problem there is access to credit. We are all aware that since the regulation around the interest rates, it's become more difficult for people to access credit from commercial banks, which means that real estate usually would be the first one to get hit because property is expensive. By the time I sell a property for 4 million, 5 million, 6 million shillings, very often that person requires some kind of financing. And if he's not able to access financing from the commercial banking sector, it means my business then suffers to that extent. So as long as credit squeeze continues to be prevalent in the market, I will continue to have difficulty in selling projects in my market.
Okay, so it comes down to the access to credit. That's an issue in that regard.
Yes.
But also, you say that billions you've received as sales and sales deposits are reflected as deferred income liabilities. So what is the status then of your deferred income?
So today we have deferred income in our balance sheet of about 1 billion shillings, which ought to have been showing up in sales. But because we have not issued leases, because we have not completed the project, it means it has to sit in our balance sheet as income that we will generate in the future. And yet all it requires is to increase the percentage of completion. Liabilities, on the other hand, any deposit that I pick up from a sale of a property, I have to show it as a liability, as if I owe that money. And yet I don't owe it. We have about 2.5 billion shillings sitting in our balance sheet, showing us amounts that are deferred or showing us amounts as liabilities as if I owe that money, and yet I don't owe it.
So a lot of technicalities, I guess, affecting that figure as well that you had reported when it came to the declining
I'm an accountant
profits.
by profession, and this is one of the few times that I don't appreciate how accounting brings out financial information, because what is in the financial statements that we have been able to produce has very little to do with what is going on the ground.
Okay.
The relationship is hardly there.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you for joining us, Dan, clarifying that, and of course, being able to give us a better picture, I suppose, of some of the things that a lot of corporations have to deal with when it comes to the finances reflecting the true situation on the ground.